Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about self-directed learning because there's really something that we need to clear up. Now, if you've been here to my channel before, you are probably aware that my kids do a lot of self-directed learning here. It's not the only thing that we do. We are not complete unschoolers, but I love relaxed homeschooling because it allows my children plenty of time to learn about things that they want to learn about in the way that they want to and when they want to learn it. And so what I've been finding is that whenever I mention self-directed learning, I usually tend to get a lot of questions about how to get your child to do self-directed learning. And so I finally realized that the root of that question for a lot of people, not always, but for a lot of people, is that I think that people are confusing self-directed learning with independent learning. Now, yes, of course, self-directed learning is very often done independently. But in the world of homeschooling, if you are actually talking about self-directed and independent learning, they really are two different things. And I think what's happening is that a lot of people are just getting the whole thing confused. So what independent learning is usually when a child starts getting older, they will become able to start doing their work on their own without their parents' help, or at least, with a minimal amount of help from their mom or dad or whoever usually helps them. So that's really what independent learning is. It's really a child just completing most of their schoolwork on their own independently. And so I think that a lot of times when I've been mentioning self-directed learning, some people have been thinking that what it means is that when you give your child time, on their own, that they are going to pick up the homeschool work that they would normally do or some other sort of educational looking thing and start to do that on their own. And that is not what self-directed learning is at all. That is how it completely differs from independent learning. So while independent learning is a child doing their assigned work independently, self-directed learning is really about giving the child autonomy over their learning. It is about letting your child explore and learn about things in any way, shape, or form that they feel led to learn. So a lot of times that's not going to look like what we parents expect an education to look like, because very often we expect education to look like something that you would typically see in school, or something that would be easy to check off on like a checklist for a curriculum. And you know what? Unsurprisingly, kids don't really choose to learn that way because for most of them, it just doesn't work. It doesn't stick as well as when they are learning things in a way that is more conducive to how they pick up on things. So I think that's where a lot of this confusion is happening, is when I'm talking about self-directed learning, I am not saying that my kids are deciding on their own that they're going to start reading through a textbook, or that they're going to decide to do math on the computer, which I will admit that sometimes that does happen. A lot of times my kids will ask to do their CTC math on their own. But you can't discount the things that your child is doing in their free time as not being educational just because it isn't something that you would typically look at as being educational. Self-directed learning, again, is really about giving your child the reins on their education. And of course, you as the parent are there to guide them, to give them advice. But self-directed learning does not stem from you assigning things to them. And it really doesn't stem from you having any sort of expectations over what their education has to look like. And actually, when I used to unschool, back when we very first started, this was something that I really had a hard time with, because I had not deschooled myself at that point yet to realize that learning and school are two completely different things. Education and school are two completely different things. So when we first started unschooling, even though I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm giving my kids, the time to explore, to do what they want, very often though, I would find myself saying things to them like, go find something educational to do. And I had this idea in my head of what an education had to look like. And you know what? An education can look like so many different things that we often don't think about. So when you tell your child to go explore, you have to fully expect, if you are giving them the freedom that self-directed learning is really all about, if you are doing that, you can very often expect that their education is going to look like playing a lot. It's going to look like exploring. It's going to look like pondering. And by pondering, sometimes it may look to you like your kids are sitting and doing absolutely nothing at all. But how many times, think about it, I mean, if you're anything like me, I don't know if everyone's like I am, but there are times that I will literally be sitting there staring off into space, and it doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything. It's that I am constantly thinking. The wheels are constantly turning in my head. And a lot of times, for a lot of children, that pondering time is the time when they are going to have like those aha moments about things they've been trying to figure out. And so you can't discount that as education. You can't look at them as saying, oh, well, you haven't been doing anything for the past 20 minutes except for petting the cat. You don't know what is going on in your child's head as they are petting the cat. So that's just one example. So I want you to just learn to think outside the box when it comes to self-directed learning. It can look like so many different things that are the complete antithesis to what you would expect an education to look like. And just because it isn't something that you would expect, it does not mean that it does not have value. It does not mean that it isn't something that is going to help them in the long run. Because very, very often, self-directed learning, honestly, looks just like living. And if you think about it, it's that life learning that is really going to have the most impact on your kids. And it honestly will have more of an impact than a textbook ever would to begin with. So I hope that I've cleared that up for you today, the difference between independent learning and self-directed learning. They are two different things. So if you want your child to embrace, you can also call it natural learning. If you want your child to embrace natural learning, you've got to just learn to just give your kids resources, give them space, give them support, but then give them the wings to fly. Don't box them into your own ideas of what learning has to look like. Let them be the individuals that God created them to be, and you will be amazed at the stuff that they come up with. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. I will get back to you, I promise. Sometimes it takes a little bit because I don't get online very often, but I will answer you. And if you like my work, I encourage you to check out my Patreon page and see what I have for my patrons there. And I hope you have a great day.